The great chamber of the Galactic Council was alive with light and sound. Towers of glass and stone stretched high above the floor, and banners of countless civilizations floated in the air. Delegates from hundreds of worlds had gathered, each one sitting in their own shining capsule that hovered like stars in a vast circle. This was where the galaxy made decisions that shaped empires. At the center of the chamber, the prime speaker raised a silver staff. The humming voices quieted. Only the soft hum of translation machines remained. The speaker's voice rang clear. Today we examine the newest arrival to the stars. A world of oceans and green lands. They call themselves humans. Their home is Earth. A ripple of amusement spread through the chamber. Small screens lit up, showing images of the humans' ships. They were simple vessels, bulky and plain, with engines that looked crude compared to the smooth designs of the Council fleets. The Council had seen such newcomers many times before. Some were ignored, some were guided, and a few were destroyed. Delegate Varen of the Zirians leaned forward. His scales glimmered like gold under the light. These humans are no threat. Their ships move slowly. Their weapons are ancient. They argue among themselves. Their history is filled with endless fighting. They will remain locked to their small worlds. Another voice joined in. They burn fuel for power, said Delegate Mora of the Elandri, a tall figure with silver eyes. Fuel. Not pure energy, not star cores, but dead plants from their soil. Are we truly to waste our time on them? Laughter rolled across the chamber. Some delegates tapped their capsules in mock applause. Others muttered that Earth would never rise beyond the shadow of its own sun. Yet not all were quick to mock. One delegate, a scholar from the quiet Veneri people, raised a thin hand. Be careful. Humans may appear weak, but history shows they endure more than most. They have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and yet they always return. Perhaps endurance itself is their strength. The prime speaker tapped the staff again. Endurance, yes, but endurance is not power. Endurance cannot defeat fleets. The Council cannot waste resources guiding a species that will never matter. The decision seemed clear, but formal debate was required. Each delegate spoke in turn. Some argued to watch humans closely, fearing surprise. Others dismissed the thought. They noted that Earth was divided into many nations, and though the humans had joined together to send ships into space, they lacked unity. Delegate Mora pressed her case with calm authority. I studied their transmissions. They sing songs of hope, but also of fear. They dream of peace, yet prepare for war. They reach for stars, but their hands still hold weapons from their own soil. These humans will fight each other long before they fight anyone else. They are no concern. The chamber agreed with nods and hums. Even those who had spoken of caution now seemed silent. It was not hatred that guided them but dismissal, the belief that humans were simply too small to matter. When the time for the vote came, the silver staff was raised once more. Each capsule flashed with light as delegates cast their choice. The result appeared above the chamber in letters of gold. Do not engage. Do not guide. Leave humans to their world. The decision was final. The banners of great empires fluttered above, their colors glowing in triumph. The council moved on to other matters, larger matters, matters they believed worthy of their time. In their minds, the humans had been judged. They were children playing at space travel, destined to vanish in silence. Far away, beyond the reach of the council's arrogance, Earth continued to turn beneath its sun. In cities alive with light, people dreamed of distant stars. Engineers worked late into the night, building ships stronger than the ones before. Leaders argued, yes, but also listened, knowing the galaxy was vast and dangerous. Humanity had not yet heard the Council's judgment, but even if they had, their answer would not be silence. The Council expected stillness, but the seeds of thunder had already been planted. The Council's judgment soon reached Earth. A message was sent through official channels, filled with polite words but sharp meaning. Humanity was invited to attend the Council only as observers, not as equals. Their voice would not be counted, their seat would not exist. They were told to watch, to learn, and to stay silent. Earth's leaders debated what to do. Some said it was better than nothing, a chance to study the galaxy and understand it. Others argued that it was an insult. Still, they agreed to send a representative. If they stayed away, the galaxy would forget them completely. If they went, at least humanity would be seen. The first envoy chosen was a man named Arun. He was not a soldier, not a scientist, but a diplomat who believed in calm speech. He carried with him no weapon, only a case filled with documents, maps, and symbols of Earth's many nations united under one banner. His mission was simple, to show the galaxy that humanity wished for peace, friendship, and respect. When Arun's small ship arrived at the Council station, he was stunned by its size. The station floated above a red star, larger than any human city. Rings of light wrapped around it, and ships from 1,000 species glided in and out like silver birds. His vessel was guided to a landing bay, where towering guards in shining armor waited. Arun walked forward with steady steps, his eyes taking in creatures of shapes he had never imagined. Some had wings, some had scales, some glowed with inner fire. He bowed his head politely to each one. Few returned the gesture. Inside the grand chamber, Arun was given a small platform at the edge of the circle. He noticed it was lower than the others. The council members floated above him, their capsules shining like stars. He felt like a student before a class of teachers, though he carried the hope of an entire world on his shoulders. When it was his turn to speak, Arun pressed the button on the small console and his voice carried across the chamber. Honored delegates of the council. I come from Earth, a world of oceans, mountains, and skies. My people are young among the stars, but we are eager to learn. We seek friendship, knowledge, and peace. We do not wish to bring harm. We only ask for respect, as fellow travelers in this great galaxy. His words were translated into 100 tongues. For a moment, the chamber was quiet. Arun thought perhaps they were considering his request. But then a laugh rang out, sharp and loud. It came from Delegate Varen of the Zirians, his golden scales glittering in amusement. Respect? From you? From a world that burns stone for power and builds ships that creak in the void? You speak of peace, but your history is painted with war. You speak of unity, yet your nations argue even now. What do you offer the galaxy except noise and weakness? Murmurs of agreement followed. Some delegates chuckled, others whispered to their neighbors. Arun kept his face calm, though his chest tightened. He tried again. We may not be advanced, but every world begins with small steps. We ask only for the chance to walk among you, not as rulers, but as equals in dignity. Delegate Mora of the Elandri leaned forward, her silver eyes gleaming. Dignity is earned, not demanded. Your kind has yet to prove anything. You should be silent and watch. Learn from your betters, if you can. The laughter grew louder. Arun felt heat rise in his face, but he did not let anger show. Instead, he bowed his head once more. If that is your judgment, then I will carry your words back to Earth. But know this. My people are many, and though we may stumble, we do not stop walking. One day, we will stand where you stand, whether you welcome us or not. Some delegates smirked at his boldness, others ignored him completely. Only the quiet scholar from the Veneri looked at him with thoughtful eyes, as if he had seen something the others had missed. Arun left the chamber with his steps steady but his heart heavy. He had come with hope, and he had been met with mockery. The council had not only dismissed humanity, it had insulted them openly before the galaxy. When he returned to his ship, Arun looked once more at the station glowing against the red star. He whispered to himself, "They see us as nothing. But they will learn who we are." The ship turned and slipped into the darkness of space, carrying home not the gift of respect but the fire of resolve. On Earth, when his report was heard, leaders and citizens alike felt the same fire. The galaxy had judged them weak, but that judgment would not be the end. It would be the beginning. The first insult had been delivered. Humanity would not forget. When Arun returned to Earth, his report spread across every capital, every council hall, and every crowded street. His words carried both pain and warning. The galaxy did not see humanity as partners. They saw humanity as weak children, unworthy of respect. The council had left. The council had dismissed. And the insult had been heard by all. At first, anger filled the discussions. Leaders raised voices and pointed fingers. Some asked why humanity had reached out at all. Others argued that they should withdraw into silence and build strength slowly. But silence was not in the nature of Earth. Across its history, people had been challenged again and again, and they had always risen. This time would be no different. In a great meeting hall beneath the united banner, representatives from every nation gathered. The hall was simple, but the air was heavy with decision. Arun stood before them, repeating the insult he had endured. His voice shook at first, but soon it grew steady. They gave us no seed. They gave us no respect. They told us to stay silent and watch like children. But we are not children. We are the people of Earth. If the galaxy will not hear us in peace, then they will hear us in strength. The hall fell silent. No one argued, for each heart felt the truth. Humanity had always quarreled with itself, but when an insult came from beyond the stars, the division seemed smaller. Work began the very next day. Shipyards that had once built only slow freighters and exploration vessels turned to warship design. Engineers who had dreamed of peaceful travel now drew blueprints for weapons and shields. Nations that had long competed now sent resources into shared vaults. Factories lit up across continents, their smoke rising like a signal to the stars. At first, progress was clumsy. The ships looked heavy and uneven compared to the smooth curves of council fleets. But the builders of Earth were not seeking beauty. They were seeking survival. They poured steel, fire, and determination into their work. Each failure taught them something new. Each test flight carried lessons that were never forgotten. Soldiers trained not for conquest but for defense. They studied records of alien fleets, every scrap of data gathered by Arun's visit. Simulations filled underground bunkers. Pilots learned to maneuver ships that were slower but stronger. Commanders studied old wars from Earth's history, realizing that their greatest strength was not advanced technology but the human will to adapt. In the quiet of nights, families listened to the news with mixed emotions. Some feared what was coming. Others felt pride in the unity that had finally been born. Children drew pictures of starships with flags painted on their sides. Songs were written, not of despair, but of rising together. Arun, who had once spoken for peace, found himself speaking again, but now with a different fire. He visited factories and told workers, "Every bolt you place is a message to the galaxy. Every ship we build is proof that humanity will not bow." Scientists, too, joined the effort. They experimented with new alloys, new engines, and new systems. Though they could not yet match the Council's sleek designs, they discovered tricks of their own. They learned how to push engines harder, how to turn weakness into surprise. Humanity's ships began to carry not just weapons, but ideas born from centuries of struggle on a single world. Slowly, a fleet began to take shape. It was not large, but it was real. Ships lined the docks of orbiting stations, their hulls dark and heavy, their cannons ready. They were christened with names drawn from Earth's long memory, names of mountains, rivers, storms, and heroes. When the first fleet gathered above Earth, people across the planet looked up at the night sky with awe. Tiny lights moved in formation, silent but powerful. For the first time, humanity felt not just like travelers but like guardians of their own future. Leaders met once more under the united banner. They looked upon reports of new ships, new training, and new resolve. For once, there were no arguments about borders or old rivalries. The insult from the Council had done what centuries of effort could not. It had bound humanity together. One elder leader spoke words that all agreed upon. "We will not strike first. But if the galaxy comes to us with laughter, they will leave with silence. If they come with force, they will leave with loss. We did not ask for this challenge, but we will answer it." And so the course of Earth was set. Where once there had been division, now there was unity. Where once there had been weakness, now there was purpose. Humanity had been told to stay silent, but instead, they began to build their thunder. The galaxy had dismissed Earth as nothing. Soon, it would learn that nothing could become something, and that something could shake the stars. The fleet of Earth was young. Its ships were heavier than most, their engines slower, and their weapons simple compared to the elegant designs of the Council races. Yet the fleet carried something rare. Every bolt and plate was placed with hope. Every pilot who entered the cockpit believed they carried not just their own life but the honor of their world. For a time, the galaxy ignored this growing strength. The Council dismissed it as a small effort that would crumble under its own weight. But not every race in the galaxy respected the Council's decisions. On the edge of explored space lived the Krith, a minor power with sharp claws and sharper greed. They had watched Earth with interest. To the Krith, Earth was a world rich with resources and colonies that had only begun to bloom. They saw humans as weak prey, barely worth the trouble. When their scouts reported ships being built, the Krith laughed. "Wooden spears painted like swords," one of their commanders said. They prepared a raid, certain it would be quick. The Krith fleet arrived near a human colony on a quiet world of red sands. Settlers were still building cities there, still planting their first crops. When the settlers saw the alien ships entering orbit, panic spread. Messages rushed to Earth. The plea was clear. "They have come. Help us." Above Earth, the first fleet stood ready. The order was given. Engines roared, and ships turned toward the stars. For the first time in history, a human war fleet left their home not in fear but in purpose. When the two forces met above the red sand colony, the Krith fleet outnumbered the humans. Their ships were sleek and fast, built for raids and quick strikes. The human ships looked like iron giants, slow and heavy. The Krith commander sneered. He believed victory would be easy. But the battle did not unfold as he expected. The human fleet advanced in tight formation. Their ships did not scatter, did not rush, did not break rank. They moved as one wall of steel. The Krith rushed forward, firing bright streaks of energy. Human shields flared and cracked, but the ships held steady. Then the humans fired. Their cannons were not elegant, but each shot was powerful. Where a Krith ship expected glancing burns, it found its armor torn open. Engines exploded, hulls shattered. The humans did not aim wildly. Every shot was chosen, every strike meant to cripple. Pilots aboard the human ships worked with steady hands. Many had never seen real battle, but they carried the memory of Earth's long history of struggle. They did not panic when surrounded. They did not surrender when pressed. They adapted. The Krith darted around, trying to exploit the humans' slow speed. Yet the humans had prepared for this. Their ships turned in patterns that trapped the fast-moving enemies. What they lacked in speed, they gained in discipline. Piece by piece, the Krith fleet began to fall apart. On the colony below, settlers watched the sky. They saw fire streak across the blackness, saw explosions of light, and wondered if they would survive. Then came the message from orbit. Stand strong. Humanity fights for you. The words spread through the colony like a flame. Fear gave way to courage. For the first time, humans on another world saw their people defend them not with promises but with strength. Back in orbit, the battle reached its peak. The Krith commander, who had begun the raid with laughter, now shouted in anger and disbelief. His fleet was breaking. One by one, his ships were torn apart. He ordered retreat. The survivors fled into the dark, leaving behind burning wreckage. Silence filled the battlefield. Human ships floated among the ruins, scarred but standing. Cheers erupted on every deck. They had faced their first true test against the galaxy, and they had not only survived. They had won. News of the battle traveled faster than light. Across the stars, races whispered in surprise. The council had said humans would remain silent. Yet here was proof that humanity's voice was thunder. They had met an enemy in space and driven it back. In the grand chambers of the council, the story reached the delegates. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others frowned in unease. Only the quiet scholar of the Veneri spoke aloud. You dismissed them too quickly. You forgot that even the smallest fire can grow into a storm. On Earth, the victory was celebrated, but not with arrogance. Leaders spoke to the people. This is only the beginning. We have defended one world, but there will be more tests. The galaxy knows we are here, and it will not ignore us again. The fleet returned home, their hulls marked by battle. The scars were kept, not hidden, for they told a story. They were proof that humans had stood their ground among the stars. The first clash had come, and humanity had not fallen. They had risen. And somewhere in the silence of the galaxy, other powers began to listen with new ears. Humanity's thunder was only beginning. The battle above the Red Sand colony sent a shockwave across the galaxy. The Krith had been expected to win easily, yet they had been forced to retreat in defeat. That story could not be hidden. Merchants carried the news. Scouts confirmed the wrecks. And whispers spread through space like fire through dry grass. In markets on distant worlds, traders spoke of iron ships from Earth that refused to fall. In hidden bars, smugglers told each other of a fleet that fought without fear. Even in the quiet halls of distant academies, scholars debated what this meant. A new voice had risen, and it was not one of silence. In the council chamber, the prime speaker tried to calm the uproar. This was a minor skirmish, he declared. The Krith are not strong. Their defeat proves nothing. But many delegates were not convinced. A tall figure from the Moran stood and spoke firmly. The Krith may be minor, but they are experienced raiders. They have fought many small powers and won. Yet humans, new to the stars, broke them in open battle. That is not nothing. That is something we must not ignore. Delegate Varen of the Zir-Eons hissed in anger. His pride had been stung since the day he mocked Arun. They had luck, nothing more. A storm can strike a tree once and break it, but storms do not rule the forest. Let us not give them glory they do not deserve. Delegate Mora of the Elandri, who had once spoken of human weakness, now spoke with unease. I studied their methods. Their ships should not have won. They are slower, weaker, less advanced. Yet they did not break when surrounded. They did not scatter when pressed. They fought with unity. I fear that unity is their strength. The chamber grew restless. Some delegates argued to keep watching from afar. Others whispered that perhaps humans should be guided, perhaps even restrained. A few, though still rare, began to wonder if an alliance with Earth might be wiser than mockery. Far from the council chamber, on the colony that had been defended, settlers told their own story. Children pointed to the night sky and said, "That is where our fleet saved us." Families built monuments of stone and steel to honor the ships that had stood above them. Hope grew where fear had once lived. On Earth, the victory brought pride, but also seriousness. The leaders knew one battle did not make them safe. It only made them noticed. Factories worked harder. Shipyards grew busier. New designs were tested, some failing, some succeeding. Every lesson was carved into the steel of new hulls. Arun walked through the shipyards often. Workers greeted him as the man who had carried the insult of the council. He never boasted. He only reminded them, this work is not for revenge. It is for survival. It is for the right to stand among the stars. Pilots trained with sharper focus. They reviewed recordings of the battle, studying mistakes, learning to move as one. Commanders drilled them in tactics taken not only from modern science but from Earth's long memory of war. Human history had always been a teacher, and now its lessons were weapons. The victory also brought something unexpected. Worlds beyond Earth began to listen. A few small species, long ignored by the Council, sent messages. They asked to trade, to learn, to talk. They saw in humans not just strength, but a reflection of themselves, outsiders trying to be heard. Humanity, once laughed at, had become a symbol to those who had been overlooked. But not all attention was friendly. Reports reached Earth of larger powers watching closely. Fleets moved near human space, not to strike but to measure. Humanity had declared itself, and now the galaxy was deciding how to answer. In one private meeting of the Council, the quiet scholar of the Veneri spoke again. His voice was soft but carried weight. You think of them as a spark. You think sparks fade. But I tell you, this spark will not fade. It will burn, it will grow, and one day it will light fires in places you never expected. That is the nature of humans. Many dismissed his words, but a few remembered them. Back on Earth, as night covered the cities, people looked to the stars with new eyes. They no longer saw the sky as unreachable. They no longer saw the Council as rulers. They saw a future where humanity could stand tall. Children asked their parents about the fleets. Songs were sung about the battle above the Red Sand colony. And in the hearts of billions, a thought took root. If humanity could win once, it could win again. If humanity could survive the first clash, it could survive the next. The shockwave of the battle had reached every corner of the galaxy. Some laughed still, but with less certainty. Some feared, but with growing reason. And some hoped, with a fire they had not felt in years. The galaxy had tried to bury Earth in silence. Instead, the sound of thunder was beginning to roll louder than ever. The victories of humanity had spread across the galaxy. The first clash, once thought minor, now echoed in fleets, academies, and council halls. The story was simple but powerful. Humans fought, and they won. Earth had learned much from the first encounter. Engineers and scientists pushed their designs further. Pilots trained in long simulations, testing new formations and strategies. Each ship that left the yards was stronger than the last. What they lacked in speed, they made up for in teamwork, discipline, and determination. Humanity's thunder was growing louder with every passing day. The galaxy noticed. A fleet of the Therax, a proud race known for their strength and skill, moved near the edge of human space. They did not attack immediately, but they observed, measuring, calculating. Traders whispered that the Therax had never underestimated a new power before. Humanity had crossed that line. On Earth, the fleet gathered again. Arun walked the decks of the lead ship, speaking to captains and pilots. We are no longer invisible. They watch us. They will test us. And they will learn that we do not break. The human ships left orbit in formation, their engines flaring in the darkness of space. The Therax fleet appeared ahead, sleek and intimidating. Their numbers were larger. Their weapons were faster. They had faced many enemies and defeated them all. But they had not faced humans. The first exchange of fire came suddenly. Bright streaks of energy cut through space, hitting the lead human ship. Shields flared and absorbed the damage. The human response was measured, precise. Cannons fired in patterns designed to confuse and trap. One Therax ship was hit, its engines failing. Another was forced to retreat. The battle continued for hours. Pilots worked without pause, communicating through short commands, trusting each other completely. Engineers adjusted energy flows mid-flight, repairing shields and weapons as they fought. Each human ship had become a small fortress in space, slow but almost impossible to destroy. The Therax commander realized quickly that his calculations had failed. The humans were not reckless, not desperate, not weak. They were patient. They adapted. Every maneuver he tried was countered. Every gap in his formation was filled by humans working as one. On Earth, people watched the battle unfold on screens that broadcast across continents. Children cheered, workers paused, and leaders stood silently. For the first time, the world understood the true meaning of the fleet's effort. Humanity had built not just ships, but a symbol. The fleet represented courage, unity, and the refusal to bow. Hours passed. The Therax suffered losses they had never expected. Their pride could not accept the defeat, but retreat was the only option. One by one, their ships disengaged, leaving the humans in control of the battle space. The human fleet, though damaged, had proven something stronger than firepower, resilience. When the fleet returned to Earth, the streets were alive with celebration. People lined the skies with lights. Children waved small flags. Ships fired ceremonial flares into the atmosphere. The victory was not just military, it was moral. Humanity had faced a major power and survived. Humanity had faced a test that the galaxy expected them to fail, and they had not only survived, they had triumphed. The shock wave from this battle was larger than the first. Messages arrived from other races, some cautious, some curious. Alliances were reconsidered. Former enemies paused before making threats. Even within the council, quiet discussions began. Perhaps we underestimated them, one delegate admitted. They are not the weaklings we thought. Humanity did not stop to enjoy its growing reputation. New ships were built. Strategies were refined. Fleets were trained to move faster, strike harder, and defend every world. The people of Earth worked together with a single goal, to ensure that no insult, no dismissal, and no attack would ever silence them again. Arun stood once more on the bridge of the flagship, watching the stars pass by. The galaxy expected silence, he said quietly. They heard thunder instead. And the thunder is only beginning. Somewhere in the dark corners of space, distant fleets took notice. Plans were changed, movements reconsidered, and orders given to strengthen forces. The humans had shown that they were not a minor power. They were a force to be measured, respected, and, if necessary, feared. On Earth, the night was alive with hope. Humanity's heart had grown louder. Humanity's spirit had grown stronger. The storm they had begun was no longer just a fleet. It was a message. The galaxy could expect many things from Earth, but silence would never be one of them. The thunder of human warships rolled across space, and the galaxy, for the first time, listened with attention. The Council had expected silence from humanity. They had expected quiet obedience and nothing more. Instead, they were met with thunder. Human fleets had proven themselves in battle, had defended colonies, and had survived attacks that many thought impossible. The galaxy had heard humanity, and it could not look away. Earth had changed since Arun first spoke to the Council. The fleet had grown larger, stronger, and more skilled. Scientists had improved engines and weapons. Pilots had learned to fight as one, moving in perfect coordination across the void. Earth had built more than ships. It had built confidence, courage, and the knowledge that humanity would not bow to anyone. The Council finally sent a new invitation, this time not as observers but as participants. Humanity was to take its first seat at the table. The delegates of Earth were ready. They brought ships, yes, but also ideas, culture, and determination. They would speak not only for themselves but for the countless worlds that watched, inspired by their rise. Arun led the delegation once more. He entered the chamber, not as a student, but as a representative of a people who had earned their place. The council members looked at him, some with surprise, others with caution, and a few with fear. The voice that had once been laughed at now carried weight. The prime speaker, who had once dismissed humanity, spoke first. You have proven yourselves stronger than expected. You have survived, and even triumphed, where many believed you would fail. Humanity, you are no longer to be ignored. Arun bowed slightly, then raised his voice so all could hear. We did not come to conquer, nor to threaten. We came to prove that humanity deserves a place among the stars. We will fight when necessary, yes, but we will also seek friendship. We will stand for our people, and we will stand for the ideals that guide us. But do not mistake peace for weakness. Humanity will not be silent again. The chamber was quiet. Delegates whispered to one another, realizing the truth in his words. Human ships had already demonstrated that they could survive impossible odds. Human will had proven stronger than many weapons. And now, human words carried the same weight as their fleets. One delegate, a scholar from the quiet Veneri who had spoken in their defense long ago, nodded. The humans have always been underestimated. That underestimation has made them stronger. Today, they claim their seat not by arrogance, but by perseverance. That is the mark of a species worthy of respect. Discussions began, not about whether humanity should exist among the stars, but how they would participate. Humanity spoke clearly, setting rules for cooperation, trade, and defense. They offered alliances, but they also demanded honesty. Trust would not be given lightly, but it would be earned through action, as humanity had always shown. Outside the chamber, human ships hovered, ready to defend if needed. They were symbols of strength, not aggression. Their presence reminded all who watched that Earth had risen through struggle and would continue to rise. On the streets of Earth, millions watched live transmissions of the Council. People cheered, knowing that their world had finally earned recognition. Children drew pictures of stars and ships, imagining a galaxy where humans were no longer small. Cities held celebrations, but the leaders reminded everyone that vigilance must continue. The galaxy would test them again. It always did. The new seat at the table was more than a chair. It was proof that humans could survive trials, defy expectations, and shape their own destiny. It was proof that the voice of a determined people could echo across the void. Humanity had been dismissed once, laughed at twice, but now it had earned respect through courage, unity, and skill. Arun looked out at the chamber and saw the faces of beings from thousands of worlds. Some were still wary, some curious, and some admiring. But all were listening. Humanity had made itself heard. Humanity had made itself feared and respected in equal measure. As the session continued, agreements were made, lessons shared, and plans discussed. Humanity's input was valued not for the size of its fleet alone, but for its perseverance, intelligence, and the fire that had carried it from a dismissed species to a power that could not be ignored. When the council meeting ended, Arun walked back to the human fleet. Ships gleamed under the light of distant stars. Pilots, engineers, and soldiers waited quietly, proud but humble. Humanity had earned its place, but the journey was only beginning. The galaxy had expected silence, and it had heard thunder. That thunder would continue, not as a threat, but as a promise. A promise that humanity would always stand, always fight when necessary, and always rise. The new seat at the table was only the beginning. The stars belonged to all who dared to reach them, and humanity had shown that it would never be content to sit quietly in the shadows. Humanity had arrived. The galaxy had listened. And the thunder of human will rolled across the stars, unstoppable, unbroken, and unafraid.